You good to go?
I'm good, ready when you are.
Sweet. Welcome back to the Open Up Podcast and to episode 79 with Sam Whitwell. My man, thank you for taking time to do this.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Oh,
I'm pumped.
lagged a little bit there, sorry.
No, sorry about that.
For anyone who isn't aware of who you are and what you do, can you give them a quick breakdown or summary of that?
Yeah, sure. Who am I? I'm a pastor. I'm a husband, a father, a life and mindset coach, and that's about it.
Is that a trend these days? Because when I was
which
around churches, the pastors were only ever older men.
Yeah, I don't know. They seem to be getting a bit younger and hopefully a bit more relevant these days to some of the younger crew. Yeah.
Do you have any view on why that might be? Is that because like people your age resonate a little better with the people coming up?
Oh, look, I think that can be part of it. I work predominantly with people under 30. So I know for me, when I was growing up in church, it helped having someone that was, not like right where I was in life, but a little bit further along.
Yeah.
That I could learn from. Yeah, it just helped. Just that relevance thing, I think, is really, it's important.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's less of you're less worried about being judged from someone who's closer to your age.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
First question, a little bit deep straight off the bat, man. Could you describe the way that you view yourself as a man and or human?
Yeah, all in, man. Wow, cool. I've come a long way in my journey. I'm 32 years old and I lived for the first 18, 19 years completely as a victim of circumstance, a victim of a lot of the external things that were happening to me at the time. And I say the first 17, 18 years because that's when I first started to take responsibility and thought I had taken responsibility. And it wasn't until about 2.5 years ago when I realized that there were so many things that I was still yet to take responsibility for. And now I feel like I'm at a place where I'm not afraid to take responsibility anymore. There's still plenty of areas for me to grow in. I'm human, but I feel like I'm at a stage in life where I know who I am now and I'm able to live so much freer because of that. And it's taken me 30 years to get here, but I'm grateful for the journey and the experiences that I've had that have led me to this point.
I love that. That lights a fire in my chest. If you could boil it down to a couple sentences, who are you now?
Who am I? I never try and answer that question with a job title or anything like that because that's what I do. It's not who I am. I'm in a couple of sentences. Wow. I'm someone who I'm loved.
Yes.
And I'm free now to go and love because I'm loved. I'm someone who is passionate about identity and claiming my identity, who I am, and helping others do the same.
That's amazing, bro. Very well put.
Thanks, man.
We might as well dive straight into childhood, man. And before we sort of touch on your stories, what was your childhood like growing up in terms of family dynamic?
Great. I think I'm one of the most blessed people on the planet to have had a fantastic upbringing with a family who I knew loved me. I didn't always allow that love in, but I deep down know and knew that they loved me. And, I've got a mum and dad who are still together and going strong 40 years down the track. And, I've got an older sister and, just an amazing childhood in terms of family dynamics. yeah, never really went without. Never had it all, but never went without. And yeah, I'm grateful for that.
That's amazing. Should probably just end it there. um, I think you touched on beforehand when we were messaging that going through school, you went through a lot of bullying. Did you want to walk us through that story?
Yeah, sure. So I was pretty much bullied from the time I started school, when I was 5 or 6, right through to when I finished year 12. I was the overweight fat kid at school, who was picked on, and when you're kind of going out for physical education, and
Yeah.
they pick like 2 captains to pick their teams. I was always that one kid left last who nobody wanted, and that was not just for sport, but it just felt like that was my life. Everyone was being picked and chosen, and they had value, and I was just the fat kid. And when I was in year 10, I think I withdrew because of that. And I think now a lot of it was in my head because of maybe one comment someone might have said along the way early on. I just took that as not good enough, rejected, um, don't have what it takes. And then when I was in year 10, a kid at school, a peer, he just looked me in the eye and said, "You will never amount to anything. You will never do anything great with your life because you don't look the way that you're meant to." I still don't really understand what that means. I still don't really understand what we're meant to look like in order to be somebody. But I took that on board, and I'd look in the mirror every single day and just affirm my hatred of myself, and that I was nothing and useless, and would probably be better off. Everyone else would probably be better off if I wasn't here.
Wow. That's a
Yeah.
pretty powerful thing for a kid that young to say to, a friend.
Yeah,
I
yeah, it
think,
was. We weren't really friends. We were just kind of acquaintances that, his group hung out with some people in my group, and he was obviously much more confident than I was, and yeah, he could see that, with certain things at school, I was trying really hard to kind of go someplace and be somebody, and he was just like, you're kidding yourself.
yeah.
Yeah,
um, I resonate with that, bro, because I was fat all the way up until fourth form in high school,
yeah,
like really fat. And I remember being told that my best friend at the time had said behind my back, like that someone had asked where I was at school that day, and he said, probably eating some pies to fatten up for winter. And I remember that
yeah,
crushing my soul, man.
yeah,
I hated
yeah,
myself for being fat ever since then. I don't think it's ever like really quite left me.
yeah. Yeah, I remember another time in school when, someone else from that same group, he called me the eighth wonder of the world, and
Wow.
that hurt.
Yep.
Now I kind of look at it and go, that's a pretty awesome achievement. If only I'd had that perspective
Yeah.
back then. But yeah, that was, just I'm a words person, so words either bring life or destroy, and you know it's one of my greatest strengths, but also one of my greatest weaknesses. Take things on board.
Yeah, and it's hard if you're in that position when you're being picked for teams last, because then it's easier to, I guess, forego that sort of experience and pull yourself out of all of those situations. And as you're pulling yourself out, you become more isolated. And
Yeah,
then for someone to come in from that peer group and to pretty much affirm like what you're thinking and the reason you're pulling away, it just makes it even
yeah,
harder. So just
yeah,
going to push you further into seclusion.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And I'd kind of made um a promise to myself that I would just forever blend in. That I wouldn't. I'm 6'4", by the way, so I'm
Oh,
really
well.
tall. So, but I'd made this promise. Now I'm just going to blend in. I'm not going to do anything great with my life because, well, I've been told that I can't, which is a dangerous word. And yeah, I just vowed to do that. And everything in life since then has, been trying to pull me out of that blending in and really taking my place in the world, which, you know, looking back now, I'm so grateful for that journey, because now, that gives me authority to give others permission. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. And in blending in and trying to mold yourself to fit in certain social circles so that you're
Yeah.
not ridiculed or
Yeah.
made fun of, you end up losing yourself more and more.
Yeah.
Like that person who you say is loved and deserves love and gives love. There's
Yeah.
no way you can be that person if you're molding yourself to fit in different social circles.
Exactly. Exactly right. Yeah.
um, were you able to talk to your parents about what was happening at school?
I was able to, and they made it very. They've always been very approachable, and always said, "You can come to us with anything." But I didn't feel that I could go to anybody,
Yeah,
so I kept it suppressed for, I think the first time I told someone about it, I was 16 years old. So I carried that for years. People say, "Oh, why didn't you tell people at school, tell teachers?" And I'm like, I didn't want to be that guy. I was already, look at it from my perspective, I was this guy who was picked on and never good enough. If I went and told a teacher, like what else is that gonna
yeah.
do? Do you know what I mean?
You're going to become like the weak narc.
Exactly. So I didn't tell anybody.
So, what did that first? Do you remember that first conversation?
Yeah. So I was in a youth group. I walked through the doors of a church for the first time when I was 13, and I felt this sense of home like I'd never ever felt before in my life, and I haven't felt it since in that sort of strength. And built relationships with leaders who were genuinely interested in knowing who I was. I felt all these emotions of, I was accepted and I was loved and valued, and it was random for me, but there was this comfort to be me. And it was with one of my youth leaders. I shared with them and said, "Look, this is what's going on," and they were just like, "Yeah, we know." We see it. Like, we look at you and see that you clearly struggle with who you are and how you look, and you back off from people, and then people try and get close to you and you put up a wall. And I'm like, "Oh, I didn't know you saw that. I mean, you're completely spot on, but I didn't know you saw that." So it's really quite interesting. But that, I think, if anything, made it feel even safer to kind of
Oh.
go, "Okay, you get me." You get me, and I'll share, I'll open up and lay it all on the table.
So, were you able to start talking about it moving forward from there? Because obviously, that's a pivotal moment, having someone with authority that you can now trust. Because, I mean, the authority beforehand had been teachers putting people into like phys ed classes, and then from there it turns into, oh, I'm last, oh, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
Were you able to open up after that?
Yeah, like I never opened up at school about it at all. I kept opening up with my youth leader and a couple of trusted friends who were, in my small circle at school. And I just began to move forward. It was a very slow process, and I got caught up in the, if I'm moving forward in, understanding and learning how to value who I am, then I have to lose weight. I put them both together in the same box. If I'm doing that, then I have to lose weight. And then I'd ask myself, why do I want to lose weight? Oh, to fit in, of course. So I was still not quite there yet, and I couldn't lose weight. Like, whatever I tried, I just could not do it until I finished school. And I went on this journey of, I've got to learn to love who I am on the way to who I'm becoming, rather than, just lose some weight to fit in, and so that was a very internal journey for me, which, when I got that, when I really grasped that concept of learning to love who I am, the weight literally fell off. It was really funny how, when I was doing it for the right reasons, and
Yeah.
yeah.
How did that process come about? Because most people, it takes something really traumatic for them to be sort of shunted into learning that. And it sounds like you went through that relatively young. How did that process come about for you?
I think the biggest thing for me was finishing school. I felt like I could finally be me. I wasn't boxed. I wasn't like I didn't go to uni straight away or anything like that. So I was just like, I can just be me. I don't actually have to have relationships and friendships with anybody. So I don't have to be judged, but I didn't go to that extreme. But I was like, I can be whoever I want to be now. I can do whatever I want to do. And yeah, my mind just kept moving forward, as I would just, like kind of go, okay, how do I love who I am? How do I love who I am on the way to who I'm becoming? Well, who do I want to become? What do I want to be? And I couldn't articulate that to the point that I can now.
Yeah.
But I was thinking forward, what do I want to do with my life? Who do I want to be? What do I want to achieve with my life? And to get there, how am I going to get there? And, a lot of that for me was losing weight because I want to have a family and I want to be around for a family and I want to live life to the full. And, I read, in the Bible that I was, born to have life and live life to the full, not think terribly of myself or anything like that, but live life to the full. And for me, that was about getting healthy, not trying to fit in, not trying to make myself be accepted, but to, I guess, unleash something within me and go, nah, I'm, body, mind, soul, like let's move forward. Let's get healthy. Let's get in the best shape, physically, mentally, spiritually that I can. It all just kind of went hand in hand.
Where does that sort of curiosity and self-awareness come from? Had that been something that was drilled into you through your faith or through your family? Or was that something you sort of picked up yourself along the way?
I think probably a bit of everything, like, a bit from my family, a lot from my youth group and my youth leaders, and spirituality as well, and some self-awareness that just came about as I would read and listen to, not podcasts in those days, but listen to CDs and all sorts of teaching and stuff that was all about not really personal development, but being who you were created to be.
Yeah.
And for me, being stuck in a box, that was not it. And so something had to shift. So it was kind of a mix of everything.
It sounds like those youth leaders were really mentors during that part of your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One, there's a few that I'm still kind of connected with, but one of them is godmother to my son now. She's,
Wow.
one of our closest friends of 20 years nearly. And yeah, they were just, and for me going into pastoral ministry, a lot of that came from what I took out of that, what I received as a 13, 14, 15-year-old. I want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to help people like that. That was where a lot of that came from.
That's powerful. And for someone who has put themselves into such isolation, like not only physically in terms of the people that they surround themselves with, but mentally as well, like the I'm not good enough, I'm useless, I'm fat, whatever, for someone to put themselves in that position to be up there in front of people, to be speaking and to be the center of attention, to be the one that people were focusing on. That's a stark contrast to what you were, and it sounds like it took seeing your purpose, which is like helping people, to give you permission to do that, which is pretty damn cool.
Yeah, it's been an amazing journey. Look, in high school, I realized, my passion to two passions really, one to sing and one to speak, and both of which I'm like, nah, that's going to require a lot. And so I again made promises that, nah, never. And, to be honest, they're two of the main things I do now. Just yesterday morning, I spoke for half an hour in front of 400 people with ease, and I loved it. And I do that most weeks, and it's amazing to kind of think the growth that's taken place to even get up there and do that.
Yeah. This is a selfish question. How
Yeah.
do you? What has been the process for you in becoming comfortable with speaking to large groups like that, especially for someone who did view it as like, oh shit, no, that's a bit too hard. Because because speaking is like, I think it was in America, were people's worst fears, like before death.
Yeah. It's crazy. There's so many people that I could never do that. I could never do that. And you're like, really? And I was there though, so I kind of get it to a point. I think one of my life mottos is do it afraid, and I was terrified, not just afraid. I would shake and tremble, and so I kind of really wanted to challenge myself, and I went to the extreme of, through my pastor at my church at the time, letting him know that I was keen to speak. And before I knew it, he was taking me to other cities and other towns and putting my name out there to other churches. And, got to the point where I was away 2 weekends a month speaking around the place. And it was just getting myself out there and just going and doing it, and getting up there and doing it before my mind got into, oh, I can't do this. Just going and doing it. And to be honest, I still feel a bit of, I don't know whether it's fear, but a bit of nervousness each time, I get up in front of a crowd. But I now use that as fuel to push me forward and go, this may be the last time, so let's make it a good one. And doing it afraid. I did a mindset video on this. Fear keeps us contained, and if we allow it, it'll just keep us in a box forever. But it can also be our biggest motivator and driver to move forward.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I agree.
I love it. I'm more comfortable now. Put me on a stage in front of 1,000 people, and I'm more comfortable than I am speaking to a room of 10. Like really, like I'm, in my element.
That's powerful, man. And I think the people who fear speaking and who are always going to fear speaking are the people that never attempt it, because as soon as you attempt it once, you get that adrenaline rush, you get that dump of hormones, and you get really excited. As long as you're like speaking your truth and you're being authentic, then you get super excited and you want to do it again.
That's right.
So if you never try it, you're never going to know how exciting and exhilarating it actually is.
Exactly. Oh, there's nothing like it. Nothing like it.
Moving on, brother, you might as well keep walking us through your story from, I guess, the point where you start pursuing your girlfriend.
Yeah. Well, I'd met Holly, who's now my wife. I'd met her in, I think it was the end of 2004, something like that. And I was still in that journey of discovery. I think probably still am. I think we're always in that space, but that real prominent space of, who am I? What do I want in life? Do I matter? I've just done this. Something I'm doing with some of my clients now is a timeline thing of their life and dividing that up into chapters. And I was kind of at the end when I met Holly, at the end of the chapter, Do I Matter? That was that chapter for me. And we became friends, and we'd kind of connected over music and our love for music and things like that. And I was like, ooh, I like her, she's good. I could date her. And she was just, put me in the friend zone as quickly as she could. It was made it clear that, I don't know what's going on here. Can you hear something? Oh, crazy. So where was I?
You've been put in the friend zone.
Oh, yes. Okay. So I was.
And I just want to say, first of all, for anyone who's currently in the friend zone, listen up.
I was put in this friend zone really, really quickly. And I was just kind of like, okay, this is either never going to happen or this is going to take some work. And we just built this friendship over, 4 years, but I'd always wanted more. And yeah, I think, for me, it was just being consistent. We were always together just because, we were in, church life together and music and stuff together. So we're always kind of, in groups and together and stuff like that. And, we'd connected a lot. And, it was probably, 3 years in or something where, I'd said to her, oh, it'd be great to catch up like for a meal or something like that, just really casual. And she sent me a text saying, you mean just as friends, right? And I'm like, oh, of course, of course. Yeah, totally. Oh, good. That was the reply I got. Like, okay. So, yeah, we just, kept that up. And one day she was thinking, she tells this story. She's like, I was thinking I'd love to do some songwriting with Sam because I'm a songwriter as well. And I had texted her that same night and said, hey, how would you feel about doing some songwriting together one day? And she was just like blown away. She was just like, what? I can't believe, I was just thinking the same thing. And so we decided to catch up a couple of nights a week and start songwriting and start, journaling and sharing. And when you do that, there's obviously this vulnerability there. When you're a songwriter, it's something that's coming from the heart. And
Yep.
so we just kept connecting and connecting and connecting. And she sent me a text one night and said, okay, Sam, what's going on? And I'm like, oh no. And I'm like, what do you mean? Because I'm not going to put myself out there just yet,
Yep.
just in case. And she said, you know exactly what I mean. And so we'd ended up having, a 2-hour conversation on the phone that night. And, I'd said, look, yeah, I really like you. And I respect that you haven't been there and maybe you're not quite there yet. And she says, no, I think I am. And to be honest, it's not what I expected. And and so we just decided to catch up, that weekend and went out and talked. One of our greatest strengths is we've always just been able to talk and go deep and it's just amazing. And that night and that weekend we got together. We decided, yep, let's give this a shot. And from there it was good for the first couple of weeks, and then it went downhill. Like it really did. It was, it was like Christmas and she went away and then I went away, and yeah, things just got just messy, just
In what
not
way?
being around and not being around. And, literally she came back from a family holiday and the next day I was leaving for a week. So it was just, she from her perspective was like, you're not giving me much time. And, from my perspective, I'm like, oh, what's going on here? Like, I feel like I'm suffocating, And I went into this pit of depression within, a week out. Like when I came back from my week away, we were nearly a month in to our relationship, and something happened. I still find it challenging to articulate exactly what happened, but I felt like I just went deep into this pit of depression. And, for what had happened, over those last couple of weeks, and, my whole flashbacks of my whole journey of rejection and all of this stuff kept coming back. And, this relationship's getting serious, and what's this going to require of me, and have I got what it takes? I've been told I'm never going to amount to anything, and what can I truly bring to this relationship? And all these insecurities and fears about the future and anxious thoughts, and I ended it. And I broke her heart. And, that was one of the most challenging days or seasons of life for me was that. And, she'd put herself out there, which, for a lot of girls is a really hard thing to do. And yeah, I broke her heart, and we didn't talk for 3 or 4 months. And then when we did talk, it was very short, mostly on her part. I get it. And she went away to Europe with a friend to get over me. And I'm like, that's an expensive therapy. But during that time, a friend of mine came back into the picture, and her and I were just always mates. And then Holly came back from Europe and met my friend, and they became close. And my friend was like, okay, my mission is to get you two back together. She didn't say that to us at the time, but it was clear that was her mission. And, we just started talking again. And, it was very casual, very brief. And then probably, 7-8 months after we'd broken up, we'd hang out more. It would just be kind of the three of us hanging out. And it was good. It was real good. And behind the scenes during that time, I was going through counseling and just trying to work out a lot of the stuff in my mind, this rejection and things, from the past that I've shared, just before that. I realized I just put Band-Aids on.
Yeah.
And, they were falling off. And a lot of those wounds were being exposed, and it was time to face them and deal with them and move forward, or not. Had the choice. But about a year after we'd broken up, I text Holly one night and said, can we catch up tomorrow night? And she said, are you serious? You've given me 24 hours notice, which is 24 hours to think about what this conversation is going to be about. And I'm like, well, we can make it the day after if you really want, but no. And we went for a drive, and I just put it out there. I said, look, I broke your heart, and, I'm truly sorry for that. And I feel like in the last year doing X, Y, and Z, I've faced a lot of this stuff and taken a lot of responsibility for my stuff. Clearing out that crap, I feel like there's still something there between us. But I'm just gonna put myself out there. If you're keen, then this is it. I'm not messing around, and this is it. And so she was like, yep, all right. And so we decided to keep it just between us for about 6 weeks. We'd invited another couple who was a few years older than us to kind of be our safe place together. And, for 6 weeks, we just kind of worked this through. And, we made it public. And then 5 months later, we were engaged. And 8 months after that, we were married. And, now 8 years married. And, she is my best friend. And
that's amazing, man.
Yeah.
A couple of questions about that period, because obviously you've gone through the entirety of your life, being told you weren't enough and being outcast, and then you get to this point where you have like these mutual likes with this girl that you like, and then you get told just as friends, which is pretty much like, oh, you're not enough in that sense. So that's been your norm, and then you pursue her for 4 years with that same repetitive like belief being affirmed upon you by her having you in the friend zone, and then you finally get to that pinnacle where she accepts you for who you are, and then that norm sort of flipped upside down. I think that's the same for a lot of people, and especially it's more frequent in business. There's those people that strive for something without actually working on themselves. You get to that pinnacle, you get to that end goal, but then it's so uncomfortable because you're not used to being in that position. You're not used to someone seeing you for who you are or accepting you.
Yeah.
And so you freak out and do what you did, which
Absolutely.
was break her heart.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Man, that's amazing. Did you ever have to change who you were? And I asked that because I think you said you guys had those similar likes, and you had that problem with, or that limiting belief that you just needed to fit in, that you needed to blend in. Did you have to do that with her throughout those 4 years?
That's a really good question. No, I don't think I did. She's always been one to, you know, she's all about mobilizing and releasing people to be themselves as well. And so we get on in that regard. And I think I'd felt like I could be me, but obviously not putting all of myself out there because that was still scary for me. But also, I've been put in the friend zone. I'm not going to put myself completely out there.
Yep.
So you do kind of go, yeah, I'm me, but you're not seeing it all. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I guess I'm just really impressed. 4 years. 4 years of
I'm still waiting for my medal, but yeah.
you need to start a friend zone club.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive, man. I know, like I've I've chased the attention of different girls, and I've just completely flipped upside down who I am, turned
Yeah.
myself into like this gentle butterfly just
Yeah.
to get attention. So like, congrats for not having to completely warp who you were.
Yeah, I think for me, I'd resolved to just be consistent in her life. And I did kind of face the reality that this may never happen, but she's an amazing person, and why wouldn't I want her as a friend if it never happened? And so open to it, believe me, but that might not be the reality, and that doesn't mean just shutting the door completely,
Yep.
so yeah.
So I think the pivotal point in that is where you start clearing out the shit. I think you said like the limiting beliefs, so that
Yeah.
you could actually turn up as yourself and be comfortable in that
Yeah.
position, having the girl that you wanted and having her see you for you and accept you,
Yeah.
which is something that had been lacking throughout your life up until then. How did
Yeah.
you go about clearing out those beliefs?
I'd I sought out a counselor who's amazing. It was amazing just being in a room where all someone did was ask you questions and let you reflect and let you I'd walk out going, oh my goodness, I feel like I've learnt so much. But all he did was ask questions. And so he was facilitating that, but it was like I was answering these questions and going, oh my goodness, where did that come from? And I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about the journey I'd been on and why I was the way I was then, and how I could move forward. And he was a very key part of that healing process for me, because he was consistent. He didn't judge. He was just, if anything, he was just like, welcome to humanity. We're all messed up in some way. Here's a space where you can start to unpack that, and that was really cool. Another thing that I had was a couple who probably about 10 years older than what I am now, so probably like in their 40s, and they'd kind of taken me in, and as just another support network, and listened to me, and some of the most gentlest, loving, non-judgmental people you'll ever meet. And again, just gave me the space to just feel what I was feeling, and yeah, they were just so consistent with me as well. And it was just people along the journey in my corner. That was the big thing for me. And yeah, but I think being honest with myself was, I often think that's one of the most challenging things we can do, is be honest with ourselves. And but one of the most fruitful things as well. Yeah.
Do you think you could give yourself permission to be so open, honest, and self-aware within those sessions and during your own reflection, because you wanted to change to be a better person for Holly, or was there something else at play as well?
Well, we were both convinced we'd never get back together.
Wow.
And so, yeah, we was just not even an option, wasn't even anything we thought of. It was not like, I'm ending this so I can go and work on myself and be the best I can be for you. It was never like that at all. It was, sorry, in the most gentling, loving way, sorry, thought this was going to work. It's not you, it's me. I get that, but be free. go and live your life. I'm sorry. But it wasn't really ever on the table until 7-8 months after we'd broken up. That was when we were like, what's going on here? But it was just about, I've either got to decide whether I want to move forward in my life or whether I just want to stay put and put band-aids on wounds and sweep things under the carpet, or whether I want to live my best life and be the best version of myself. And there's no question about that. What sounds better? Do you know what I mean? What sounds like the more preferred option? And I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna do this, then it's gonna be painful. So I knew that before I went into counseling and accountability and stuff. I'm like, okay, this is going to be painful, but it's going to move me forward if I'll allow it to. And so I just went and I made sure that I had an open mind and an open heart. And one of the greatest things that I sometimes use now with my coaching is the inner child.
Yeah.
It blew my mind, and still, like, it sounds bizarre, but went through some exercises where, like, I'm left-handed, I write with my left hand. I would write my inner child a letter with my dominant hand, and then I'd use my other hand to let the inner child respond. It sounds bizarre, but my goodness, some of the stuff that came out of that, how little Sam was feeling, that was where a lot of my healing was found. I just swept things under the carpet and dumped crap on, in my life and just, band-aids and how does that inner self then feel? Devalued, rejected,
Yep.
And so that was a real pivotal moment for me that, I use that in some of my coaching now, but, not straight up because it sounds bizarre.
And I know that does sound woo-woo and esoteric, but if you think of it in terms of energy, like every part of our body is energy, a thought is energy, manifestations of thoughts, so feelings, words, and actions are all energy, and all of those feelings that you would have felt for those moments that you swept under the rug are all energy, and if you don't express them, you don't allow them to leave your body. And so we know energy never dissipates, so if you don't express it, it'll stay in the body because it has no vehicle to take it out of that. And so that's what that inner child work does. It allows you an opportunity to express it and rid yourself of that negative and sometimes toxic energy.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely right.
And in terms of reflection, I think this is something I've been thinking about for the last couple of weeks, how powerful reflection is. Just in terms of the permission over time we give ourselves to be vulnerable. Because if you keep asking yourself specific questions, you might have resistance at first, but over time those walls and those barriers are going to come down lower and lower, and you'll get to a point where you're finally authentic and finally you either think, say, or write the truth. And once that truth comes out, you can't ever go back.
So true. Yeah. So true. Like even, even think back to, before that process began, when someone would say to me, a friend of mine always used to say to me, "How's your heart?" And I'd just be like, "Oh, all up, fine, good,
Yep.
thanks, mind your own business." Whereas now someone says to me, "How's your heart?" And I'm like, "Well, and I'll unpack it just because I don't even think about the wall anymore. Like I just go, well, this is going on or, whatever, and that just shows the growth there. But it's such a freeing space to be in, to be able to just reflect and go, yeah, this is going on. And yeah, it's awesome.
Was there any aha moment or any real pivotal moment for you in getting rid of, which is probably the world's biggest disease, the I am not enoughness? Was there an aha moment at all for you, or a succession of them? Because that's something that most people, I think, go through.
Yeah, look, I think that's probably a question that, since, I work with Tony Versick with Tonibody, and it's probably not a question that I have, been able to really answer till, about 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
Remind me of the exact question you asked again.
Was there an aha moment or like a succession of moments where you realized like, oh shit, I'm clearing the feeling of not being enough?
Yeah, that's right. One of the most powerful questions that I can ask myself around that is, when did I decide that I wasn't enough?
Yeah.
And they'll kind of stand back. Oh, well, let's go back to school, shall we? Being able to ask myself that question helps me to go, well, what am I going to do with that? So I decided then that I wasn't enough. Am I enough now? Yes or no? And if no, okay, how did I decide that? How did I come to that conclusion? How can I move forward in that? And so now I look at myself and go, am I enough? Well, I think I'm enough for today. Like, I'm not perfect, but I think I'm doing all right. There's always moments where, I feel, I don't feel like I'm enough in this, or I don't feel like I'm doing enough in this. And it just comes down to, I think, the quality of my questions to myself.
Yep.
When did I decide that, or what's happened this week that has triggered maybe that negative emotion, and how can I move myself out of that? How can I ask specific questions, or pick up the phone and call Tony and go, "Hey, Tony, this is going on. Can you help me unpack this?" It's a challenging one, because I find myself now working with men predominantly who go through the same thing. I'm not enough for my wife, my kids, my this, my that. Just the other day, I was talking with someone who had just come home from the hospital with his son, newborn son, and he's like, he just cries, and I'm not bonding, and I don't feel like I'm enough. And I'm like, yeah, been there. And, was able to kind of speak from, my scar. I think scars give authority. So to kind of go, yeah, been there, went through that pain, and this is how I got through that. So just kind of speaking that into other people. I digress. I know I'm digressing, but yeah.
No, that makes total sense, man. That's how people learn. And that's why I believe like turning pain to purpose is so integral to like raising the vibration consciousness of people on the planet.
Yeah.
And in terms of going back to like how you pose the question to yourself, when did I decide I wasn't enough? If you go back to those moments, you can see it through the lenses that you have now. And if you become more mindful, self-aware, more vulnerable, then you can show whoever hurt you like love and empathy and reframe the story as like, okay, no, that didn't mean I wasn't enough. It just means that they were hurting and they needed someone to take that out on.
Yeah.
And if you reframe all those stories throughout that timeline up until now, it clears away a lot of those blockages.
Yeah.
It takes work,
definitely. Oh, of course. Of course.
I think you told me that you lost a heap of weight in the last decade.
Mm.
Talk me through that.
Yeah. So when so I grew up, I'd do anything I could to get out of PE at school.
Yeah.
Anything I could, get mum to write notes, or I've injured, whatever, to get out of it and never participate in it. I never went to swimming at school or anything like that. And yeah, overweight, the stigma, and tried to lose weight towards the end of school, couldn't, had that kind of light bulb moment, learned to love who I was on the way to who I'm becoming. The weight started dropping off. I was working in retail after I finished school, just part-time, and the CSIRO book came out, the first one, and I was just flicking through on my break, and there was this formula to, eat this to lose weight and calculate how much you need and la la la. So I'm like, oh, I'll try that. I tried it, and and it was just really about balance, and I just started eating better. And when I find when I fuel my body better and eat better, I feel better. And so I'm like, this feels good. I didn't notice any change on the scales or anything, but I'm like, that felt good. So I'm just going to keep doing that and build some consistency. And before I knew it, I'd lost 10 kilos. And then I'm like, okay, how can I step this up a bit? And so, I started doing some push-ups and sit-ups each night in my bedroom. And then I decided to join a gym. And well, I had no idea what to do at a gym. I didn't even know how to turn the treadmill on, let alone anything else. So, I joined the gym, and, I probably spent years at the gym, just bare minimum. Can I lift that with ease? Yes, I can lift that with ease. Cool, great, done my workout. Had no idea what I was doing, but it's all part of the lesson. And in about 18 months, I'd lost 30 kilos, and I felt great. This confidence was there, and I'm like, I feel healthy, I feel good, and so my mind felt good, and just wanted to keep doing that. And so I kept doing that, and I kept it off. And in 2013, so this was back in 2006 that I'd finished losing the weight, 2007, and kept it off. And then in 2013, Holly and I had been married 18 months, and randomly moved to Perth for 3.5 years. And one of the greatest seasons of our life. We loved it there. And life got busy. We were both working full time. I was working about 60 hours a week every week, and just got into survival mode and convenience mode. And I'd put on probably 13, 14 kilos, and I was just like, oh, here we go again, back to where I was, and kind of just went, oh, well, whatever. And it wasn't until coming back to Adelaide in midway through 2016 where kind of went, something's got to give. And I didn't know what I needed to do. Well, I knew what I needed to do, but it was just like, oh, no, it can't be that. It's got to be something else, something much easier. And life's too busy for that. And it was the beginning of 2017 where I decided, because we were having trouble falling pregnant as well, and I decided, okay, New Year's resolution. I've never done one of these before and stuck to it, but I'm going to give up added sugar and fake sugars. I was drinking a liter of Pepsi Max a day minimum. And
I feel you, man. I was the same.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I can't touch this stuff now. It's crazy. And I was just like, I'm just gonna do that. I'm just gonna start there, implement one simple change, and go from there. And I joined a gym, and I went once in the first month. I'm like, oh, I'm just not feeling it like I was. And then I blamed it on my age. I'm 30 now. It's harder to lose. That was crap. And then I was scrolling through Facebook, and I saw an ad from Tonibody to sign up and lose 3 to 7 kilos in 7 days. And I'm like, hey, I'd be happy to do that, preferably 7, but great, it's free.
And he's got
Click.
a real enticing picture of him, probably with abs.
Totally. And I'm like, yeah, cool. If you can find them in 7 days, then that's awesome. And so I joined and went through the 7 days, and I think I lost 2 kilos or something, and I was happy with that. And then I went on another 7-day challenge, and then won a 12-week program for being engaged in the group and whatnot. So I didn't know that winning that 12 weeks or even clicking that apply now button would be the cusp of something that would just change my life completely. 2.5 years later, I've lost another 20 kilos with Tony. So I'm about 37 that I've lost now, and I feel great. I'm kind of at the stage of it's been really funny. I chatted with another trainer just a couple of weeks ago here in Adelaide, and just said, this is where I'm at. This is where I've been. This is what I want to achieve. And he said, oh, we need to increase your calories and start bulking. And my brain went back to, I'm going to put on weight.
Yep.
Oh my goodness, I can't put on weight. I can't. And so I've been working through that just the last week or so. And, I'm over that now. That's okay. Happy to eat. But yeah, to kind of go, I'm 32. I'm in the best shape of my life in, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, I think, and that's pretty cool. It's pretty
amazing,
cool. And
man.
yeah.
And I think it's, I personally like that contrast between that 4-year pursuit of Holly, finally getting her and then freaking out, and then this long, arduous journey of losing the weight, putting it back on, and then now we're at this point where you lose it, but because you're so content within yourself, like you're all right staying in that position, you don't immediately rebound to that overweight guy who was made fun of.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's powerful, man.
Yeah.
I guess, before we get into some questions and wrap up, what have you learnt through Tony's program or his coaching, and what services do you and him offer?
Probably be easy to answer what haven't I learned. Oh man, I joined to lose some weight, and that was the last thing I needed. What I needed was to get my mind into gear, get my confidence back, and take responsibility again and step up and be the man that I was created to be. And I've learnt so much around, for my own journey, I've learnt so much around confidence, and even 2 years ago, I never would have jumped on a Skype call, a podcast with you. Like, I never, and this is my second podcast in 2 weeks, and I'm just like, what? I love it now. I'm addicted. Yeah. But a lot around limiting beliefs and tackling those, and not being afraid to tackle those, and asking myself questions that are going to serve me and move me forward. And there's so much. Like, yes, I've learned the nutrition and the exercise stuff. Like, I've learned that, and that's all good, but the mind has just been powerful. And I think my biggest shift is routine. Having a routine every single day. I know, and I don't always know what's going to happen in the middle of the day, but I know how I'm going to start it and how I'm going to end it. And that it helps me get into a powerful state in the morning, and it keeps me in that powerful state. But when life happens, and it always does, I know what tools I can implement to get back into that powerful state. Yeah. And I know then how to end my day well, to optimize the sleep that I do get. I've got a 17-month-old, so it's not always cruisy sleep, but to be able to optimize it and wake up the next morning and feel like, okay, I can get up and I can do this again, has been really, really powerful. And so I'm passionate about teaching routine. I've learned a lot about casting a solid vision of who I want to be and what I want to achieve. Like, this is my vision wall behind me, and one of my biggest things is the word yes.
Yeah, I love that.
Just saying yes, that's one of my biggest things now, is when I'm asked to do something, say yes, and then between now and doing it, figure out how to do it. That's how I live now, and I love that. I've learned so much, but even now as a coach, I've been mindset coaching on Tony's program for the last year, nearly a year, and being in those spaces, I remember my first coaching call on Skype with one of our clients, and I was just like, an hour? What am I going to say? And now I'm like, oh, we're going to keep this to an hour. It's amazing to be able to. It's actually a real gift to be able to be invited into someone's story and to be able to journey with them. And I posted a quote on social media last week, and something along the lines of, as leaders, one of the greatest things we can bring is being willing to journey in the dirt with people, embracing silence, bringing presence, and just not feeling like we have to have all the answers.
Yeah.
And that's been a real big thing for me, knowing the questions to ask people as I coach them, but knowing that, I'm human. I don't have all the answers. And one of the greatest gifts I can bring to my coaching is to sit with people in their questioning, not encourage them to live in victim mentality, but to go, yeah, I get it. I understand, and I hear you. And we'll sit in this space as long as you feel you need to, and then we'll move forward, and I love it. I'm just starting to put some things together to take on my own clients locally as well, which is really exciting. We're just all about helping men and women become the best versions of themselves. Like, it might sound cliche, but once you've had a taste of Tony's program, it's like nothing else. Learning how your mind works and learning how you can be in control of so many things in your life, and living things such as routine and gratitude and meditation in all its many forms that it is. It's really, really powerful, and it's changed my life. It's changed my perspective on so many things, and I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to Tony and to this journey.
That's a good testimonial.
I'd sign up after that.
A few quick questions, brother, and we'll wrap up. What have you added to your life or removed from it to get it to the point now where you're seemingly content with who you are and where you are?
Routine and gratitude.
Shit, that's concise.
I think, routine for me keeps me in check, and gratitude keeps me humble.
Awesome, man. What are you most grateful for right now?
I'm grateful for my family. Like, I'm on holidays this week, and I'm just grateful to just wake up, and I heard my son chatting to himself in his little, 17 months old, his little chattering way this morning, and I'm like, there's nothing that beats this.
That's so amazing, great. Man. Last question. If you had the chance to put a message on a billboard somewhere in Adelaide where thousands of people would see it, what would that message be? And it can't be like sign up to Tonibody.
Click here. Yeah. I would say the best version of yourself is a yes away. It's all about just saying yes and embracing the journey.
That's awesome. At some point, that yes has to become a neon light, please.
Come on, absolutely. I'll get on Etsy and order one.
Man, before we wrap up, I just want to acknowledge you first of all for making time to do this, for reaching out and wanting to do this, putting yourself out there. You said you did another podcast before, so I'm super grateful that someone like you has been through what you've been through. You've learned the lessons that you needed to learn to get to a place where you're content, and you're now helping other men and women use those lessons that you've learned. So Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm super grateful for the opportunity. Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing and, helping people have a platform and a voice to open up and share their story. It's awesome.
Awesome, bro. You have a good day, eh?
You too. Thanks so much.
Later.
See ya. Bye.